Welcome back to the beautiful streets of Philadelphia. So me and Jess recently just took an awesome road trip to Maine. It was such a good time. We took the car, we didn't take the bikes. It was a lot of miles, and we did a lot of camping, so we had gear with us and stuff. I had actually brought my GoPro, but I just released a video not too long ago talking about how the GoPro pooped out during this ride, so I ended up just taking all kinds of footage off of my phone. And these phones, I mean, they're pretty advanced, so I got some really good shots. So we kind of just went straight up the northeastern corridor through New York City, Connecticut. It was a pretty, standard commuting experience getting in and out of all the big cities, but eventually we ended up in northern Massachusetts. We stopped at this cool little kind of like seafood restaurant right on a marina, and it was very close to the bridge to get into what is just north of Massachusetts, New Hampshire. So we were just about into New Hampshire by the time we finally stopped and got some lunch. So shortly after leaving our lunch spot in Massachusetts, we were in Maine, because New Hampshire is like 35 miles long when you're on the I-95 corridor. So we took a bridge right into Maine and then started snaking up the coastline. The coastline in Maine is beautiful. It's just like rocky beaches. It reminds me a lot of Northern California. Maybe not so drastic, but it was a nice change of scenery from the Jersey Shore. So we worked our way up the coast pretty good that first day. We ended up staying in Brunswick, which is a little bit past Portland, and we used it as kind of our launching point, because we had just driven about 10 hours. And the next day we were planning on going up into the northern highlands to camp for a couple days at Baxter State Park. So we just enjoyed our first night in a hotel with our amenities, got a shower in, stuff like that, and just enjoyed the town. So while we were staying in Brunswick, we found this really cool swinging bridge that was designed by an architect that also designed the Brooklyn Bridge. And it showed in this swinging bridge design. For anybody who's ever seen the Brooklyn Bridge, there's a lot of cables. It's a suspension bridge, and this small pedestrian swinging bridge very much had a similar design and feel to it. It was pretty fun walking across it too. At one point I found myself acting like a little kid, just kind of jumping up and down like it's a trampoline, because the bridge would react and it would start to swing a little bit, and it was just a little too hard to resist doing that. So the next day we left Brunswick after our hotel stay and headed up to the Northern Highlands to visit Baxter State Park. This place was so remote and so rugged. We got to where we needed to be. It was about, I think, 150 miles north of Brunswick, and the road ended. Our campground was another 10 miles down the road. So we had to go down a dirt road for 10 miles, which sounds fun, right? Except that we were in a Nissan Versa, and this dirt road was very choppy. It was actually a forest logging road. So it was technically a toll or a private road owned by the logging company, but they let people use it. You just have to give them the right of way. If a logging truck starts coming down the road, you have to pull over for them. We were there on Memorial Day weekend, so we ended up not having too many logging trucks around, but this road was very choppy. Our car got beat up. It was just rattling to death. So once we set up camp, we set our sights on Mount Katahdin. It was just on the other side of a lake that we were camping on, and it was such a beautiful sight. The next day we ended up in Baxter State Park, and we were going to hike. Originally we wanted to hike Mount Katahdin, but it's a really tricky hike. For one, it takes about 12 hours, so you have to start at 5 in the morning. Also, it's a very popular hike. It's the end of the Appalachian Trail. So it's not only are there through hikers, but then there's also people that are finishing their journey, their 3 to 6 month journey, depending on how much of the Appalachian Trail they've done. So it's just a very high traffic trail. And me and Jess were like, this sounds cool, but we also just don't know if we're completely capable of doing this 12-hour rigorous hike. It was about 10 miles. So we found another mountain across the way, because this park is huge. It's about 45 miles north and south. And we found another mountain called Doubletop Mountain that was about 2/3 of the elevation. It was about a 5 or 6 hour hike, depending on your speed. We did it in 5 hours, 15 minutes. And it gave us a really great sensation as well. So I was pretty happy that we decided to do Double Top Mountain instead, because when we got up there, the views were gorgeous. And when we got back down, we were thoroughly exhausted. And I swear my feet hurt for like 2 days after that. So I was happy to have settled for a smaller task, because those mountains up there, they are untamed. They're just rocky. They're very much natural. The state park does nothing to pave them. Their whole thing, Baxter State Park, was gifted by the governor of Maine, and it was like an endowment, like a trust, and he said nothing can change. No matter what, you preserve this land, don't develop it, so there's no roads. There's one dirt road, but there's no pavement, there's no running water. There's a few outhouses, there's that kind of stuff, but it is natural. So we learned when we were there that this is for experienced hikers, and we're not very experienced. We are able-bodied, we're younger, we can handle, but woo, did it beat us up. I have to say though, it was one of the coolest things I've ever done. Just getting to the top of a 3,500 foot mountain summit. So when we were done, we went back down to the bottom of the mountain, got in our car and drove to a lake that was just at the base, and we went kayaking for a little bit and had a beer in celebration. It was a pretty great moment. The water was nice. It just felt good to be on our butts, not standing anymore. And it was nice to look up and reflect on what we just achieved, because we were right at the base of this mountain, and it looks mighty when you're down on the water. It really it's something I've never done before. And I definitely learned my threshold for pain that day. I don't think I could do much more than that. 3,500 feet in 5 hours. That's about my max. I don't want to do any more than that. So then we headed back to our campground. Our campground was off-site. We did not stay in the park because the park had so few amenities. We found a campground that was about 10 miles away, and it had running water, it had some showers. It was a pretty rough campground, but the setting was so beautiful. We were camping on a lake with Baxter State Park in the distance. The mountain was right there, front and center. So the amenities were decent. The views were amazing. They just, they were having a rough time. They didn't have a lot of food. We got there and we didn't bring very much with us, and they had very little. So we survived off of some sausages for a couple days, and hey, it got the job done. So that was cool. But yeah, it was a bit of a rough go. Oh, I can't go left there. Guess I'm going up to Front Street. So yeah, we left Baxter State Park after 2 days of camping. I'm sad to say we didn't see a moose. We really wanted to see a moose, but we couldn't really get back into the area where the moose were. So we headed down to Acadia next. Before getting all the way into Acadia, where we were going to be camping for a couple more days, we stopped in Bar Harbor. Bar Harbor, or I think it's pronounced Bahaba. I saw a sign that pronounced it, and it was B-A-A Haba. So we went to Bahaba, and we got our lobster rolls, because when in Maine, you have to get a lobster roll, right? We found this cool little spot that was right in the marina district of Bahaba, and I'm sure it was a little overpriced. I think we paid $41 for a lobster roll. It was a quarter pound, but man, did it hit the spot. And then we got some really good beers. The whole time I was in Maine, I was trying a lot of their local beers, because I'm a craft beer guy. So I got I think it was just a New England style IPA, and it was delicious. We finished up our meal there, then we walked around the town, because Bar Harbor is just it's a really cute little kind of coastal marina style town. We got some ice cream. We got a chocolate malt. I'm a big chocolate malt person. And Jess got herself I think it's peppermint ice cream. I learned this about Jess on our vacation. She loves peppermint ice cream. I can't say that's for me. I'm not a huge fan of the peppermint flavor, but she loves it, and she found peppermint ice cream at this little ice cream parlor, and she was a happy camper, literally, because after that we headed back to camp. And we set up our tent, and then we went down to the coastline. And man, Acadia, I get why it's a national park. This place has such natural beauty. It's like where the mountains meet the ocean. That's why I kept thinking of this area as California or the West Coast, because For anybody who's been to Big Sur, it's like the mountains just spill into the ocean, and it's such a cool atmosphere. And Bar Harbor, or well, just Acadia in general, the islands of Acadia, they really had that kind of feeling. So we sat on the rocks, enjoyed the water, and then we went and did some good hiking. So this was a couple days after I had done Double Top Mountain out at Baxter State Park. And we went to this, I think it's a pretty famous hike at Acadia called the Beehive Trail. And it's a very vertical hike. They've installed a lot of little like rebar, kind of like monkey bars. That's how I thought about it. Like things to assist you to get up these rock walls. And it was really cool. I think we elevated about 350 feet or so in a third of a mile. So it was a quick, straight up kind of trail. It didn't take long, 20, 30 minutes. There was a lot of traffic on the trail, so that kind of slowed us down. It's super popular, so, and we were kind of at the end of peak tourist season, so we had a little competition, but it was a good time. I would say that most people could do it. There was some people in front of us that seemed pretty scared and that were maybe not so physically capable, and they still made it up just fine. I think it was more intimidating than anything. They would look at it and be like, ooh, that looks scary, but then they would go for it and they would be successful. So if you're ever at Acadia State Park, the Beehive Trail is, I feel like it's a must do. If there was anything that I would recommend, it would be to check out that trail, because then you get to the top. It's just, I love things that are fast. You know, like if I can go to the top of something in less than a half hour and get the sensation of sitting on top of that mountain, I'm gonna go for that. I guess the main thing that you have to absolutely do, no matter how physically fit you are if you go to Acadia, is you have to watch the sunrise. I had watched other people, you know, like, just like anything, when I'm going to go somewhere, I'm researching it, I'm going to watch some YouTube videos on people that have gone there. And everybody that I watched YouTube content on talked about checking out the sunrise. A lot of them say to go up to Cadillac Mountain, the top of Cadillac Mountain, but you have to pay. You have to buy tickets for Cadillac Mountain. I stayed at a campground that had access to the coast, so I just went down right to the coast. Like, sure, I didn't have the elevation to where maybe, like, they had a slightly better view at the top of the mountain than I did right on the coastline, but I don't know. It was pretty great, because I was sitting next to the crashing waves, watching the sunrise, sipping on some coffee that I had just brewed over the campfire. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. Plus, I'm an early riser. I'm a baker, so getting up at 5 a.m. to watch the sunrise, that's nothing. That's sleeping in for me. But it was probably, if I had to say what the most memorable part of my entire trip to Maine was, I think it was sitting there for a half hour, just relaxing, enjoying the sunrise. It seems like a small thing, but, you know, sometimes the small things are the most profound. So on our way back, we stopped in Portland. We stayed over there for the night, just as like a halfway point, because we were going from Acadia State Park, which is pretty far up in Maine, and we were going to visit Jessica's parents, who live at the very beginning of the Cape in Massachusetts. So we stopped in Portland for the night. We just got like a cheap hotel and got some dinner and stuff. I didn't really take any pictures there. It's a really cool town though, very artsy. The thing that I noticed about Portland was that, I mean, I was there on a Saturday night, so it was lively, but there was so much live music, not only in the clubs and stuff, but on the streets too. I found a lot of buskers, a lot of just energy on the streets. I thought Portland was really cool. I can't imagine what it's like to be up there in the winter. You know, that's always the hard part when you visit places. I have a lot of family in Minnesota, so like I would always visit in the summers, and I'd be like, this place is so pretty. And they're like, yeah, but January. Just don't forget that it snows here, and I always visited in July. So, you know, one thing I love about Philly is we're fairly temperate. We don't get a lot of snow. I don't even winterize my motorcycles. But yeah, Portland was a fun city. I wish we spent more time there, but we were really focused on the natural side of Maine. And I'll be back. Maybe next time we'll do some more. So yeah, then we headed down to Massachusetts, spent some time at Jessica's family's house. They live on a body of water called Buzzards Bay. And it's a pretty cool area. It's like right where the Cape starts. There's like a canal that was dredged by the U.S. Corps of Engineers that separates mainland Massachusetts from the Cape. And that's basically what Buzzards Bay is. It's the southern side of that canal. So we went out on the boat, got to check some stuff out. There's a really cool like elevating bridge that goes up and down. It's a train bridge, but it's pretty grand. It's actually, there's a stat, I forgot what it was. I want to say it's the largest raising train bridge in the world, or at least the United States. I don't know what to call that, a raising bridge. It just elevates vertically on like a suspension kind of wire, similar to like an elevator system. But yeah, that was really cool. Went out on the ocean for a minute, did a little bit of fishing. I caught some very small fish. I'm not much of a fisherman. And then that was kind of the last day. We were on the road for 7 days. After we left Massachusetts, we just chugged right from there back to Philly. Got caught in some torrential rain going through New York City. I never saw New York City flood so bad. And then ironically, like a month later, New York City was in the news for flooding like crazy. So I saw a little prerequisite to that event. Yeah, it was a really exciting time. I love Maine. I want to go back. Jessica grew up in Massachusetts, so she used to go to Maine all the time. Her grandparents lived in New Hampshire, just on the other side of the bridge. And for her, it was like, you know, this was just like a nostalgic event, but for me, it was kind of eye-opening. Like, you know, it was a pretty good distance. I think it was a 10-hour drive from here to our first stop, which was in Brunswick, Maine. But, I mean, it feels like you're in a different world. And it has some fun names. I enjoy it. They call it Vacation Land. Its slogan is the way life should be. I think Maine has really leaned into being kind of a peaceful place, a place where people go to enjoy the leisurely side of life and enjoy the natural side of life. But it also felt fairly touristy too. At least like southern Maine and coastal Maine, it was built up. So I don't always love that. Having grown up in Florida, you know, like I don't love tourist traps. But hey, I'm going through the historic district of Pennsylvania where the Liberty Bell is, so I mean, I guess tourism exists everywhere. But I mean, there's a little bit of everything there. If you want to really do some intense hiking, Baxter State Park is out of this world. It has so much to offer, but it's extremely rigorous, and I can't emphasize enough how hard it can be to just even get yourself there. Like, there's a lot of dirt roads, there's no cell service, there's minimal resources. You really have to pack in, pack out, and you need to be ready for committing a whole day to each event. If you want to do a trail or you want to do a hike, just assume it's going to take you the entirety of that day. And if you kind of stick with that plan, you'll be fine. But I was, you know, it was my first time, so I learned some lessons along the way. Acadia is just, you know, it's gorgeous. It's coastal. It has the amenities. You can stay in a hotel there if you want to and enjoy Bahaba, or you can do what we did. We just camped in the national park campground, and it was inexpensive, and it was a pretty beautiful area. The campground itself was not my favorite because they just really pack you in. You didn't have a lot of space, but the surrounding area, like having access to the coast from my campground, that was amazing. So I took the good with the bad. I would say all in all, it was well worth the trip, and I would go back. I would go back to both places. So yeah, here we are back in Philly. It was a lovely experience. I would love to take the motorcycle there next time. Me and Jess knew we'd be pushing it if we tried on this particular vacation, especially because we were going to camp so many days in a row, and we knew we were going to have to really pack in and pack out. But if I did take the bike there, I would just do it a little differently. Probably rely more on staying in hotels and a little less on camping. And maybe Baxter State Park would be a little more accessible because those dirt roads would be nothing for the scrambler. But it would just be a really good time. Actually, I forgot. Baxter State Park does not allow motorcycles. That's a bummer. And I don't blame them, honestly, because it's such a serene and protected environment. I could see why a motorcycle would disturb that. But there's so much wildlife there. It's pretty beautiful. But yeah, that was my trip to Maine with Jess. We had a great time. I look forward to going back in the future. So I'll catch you guys soon. Till then, ride safe.